Mengijizondlo ziyakesana, ziyakesana. Mengijizondlo ziyakesana, ziyakesana. Oh, kanti nginamanga, 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 ngekho.
There's a lot of individuals who do not see politics for what it is. And politics at this point, especially in Africa, has become sort of a branding campaign. It's a marketing game. Who can get the most votes? How do I get myself in a position of power? How do I get more power and keep that power over a sustained amount of time, right? So you make chess moves in order for you to achieve that. Whereas back in the day, things were different. Vusi Tembekwayo, one of his viral talks, he talks about how back in the day, because our government emerged out of apartheid, out of oppression, it was only natural for the leaders to be pushed to the top, because you can't be a bullshitter in that environment, right? We needed real leaders in order for us to actually achieve what we achieved. So those people that were at the top were people who had to sit and plan and come up with objectives. And with those objectives and all those plans that they had put in motion, they had to come up with an execution plan and then execute it. So when we appointed them as our government, we were being led by true leaders. People who literally were selfless, were willing to die for the cause, die for the benefit of this country. But times have changed, right? Most of them are no longer within the political game. The few faces that are still there are being manipulated to a large degree, so there's not enough resistance. So right now we're being led by rather people who went to political school. They come from the studies and they get into politics, and what they know is to play politics, which is branding and marketing. How do I get more votes? How do I get more power? That's what they know. They don't know how to plan and execute to that level. They don't. What they know is what they studied, what they understand about what people like and don't like. And we're still stuck in a place where there's an attachment to the brand. So a lot of people still vote ANC, ANC, ANC because they are attached to the brand. The brand, when they see those colors and they see ANC, it brings them to an attachment of a time that ANC liberated them, where ANC had leaders that truly died and bled for them. And it's hard for them to imagine that that has all come crumbling down and it's basically absolutely nothing and no resemblance to what it was before. Very difficult, especially given the fact, like I said, there's still a few faces in there that still come from that era. So people are holding on to that. Those faces are being used to keep the votes and keep the hope and the faith within the brand, I want to call it, rather than the political party.
Do you really think that's why people vote for the ANC? Well, the people that do vote for. When I used to have the conversation with my mother, it always came across as some form of loyalty towards what they went through, the ANC, to bring them at the state they're in right now, liberation, in inverted commas.
Supposedly.
Yeah. So then when she was always voting, she wasn't really happy about it, but she still went ahead. This time around, the last election, this was the first time where she was like, hey, yo, and now it's certain as well. When I was with mom, I think last month, she was telling me to Aikasham.
So who does she vote for now? Or who does she intend to vote for?
Not voting for anyone. She can't vote for anyone else. And it makes sense. I mean, she comes from an impoverished background, Mlazi, and now all of a sudden now she can be a lawyer, she can open a business, she can work and have a particular position. But before the ANC, that wasn't allowed. That wasn't a real thing. I think we all need to apologize to... That man needs an apology. For me, Justin J, I can apologize to that man. If I had to see him, I'd walk up to him and apologize and then tell him what I think of him. I think he's a great leader. I think he's a hero. And I think he's a fucking brave African man to do what he did. Granted, we were clever blacks thinking we know everything because we studied this and that. We know the PFMA, corruption, this and that. That's hogwash. All of that stuff is hogwash.
I definitely think it was a political agenda, the whole corruption thing. And it was easy to sell. I mean, that man got into power and literally just opened the floodgates for black entrepreneurs to come in and make money. I don't think or remember a presidency, in my lifetime at least, where black entrepreneurs thrived like under that man's government. And people threw allegations, it's corrupt and people don't follow the appropriate channels. And blacks, we were so easily jealous of each other and envious that it was so easy to sell to us, right? Because you're not eating. So it's like, when I apply, I don't get it. This guy's corrupt, he must go, right? And for me, it was like, be patient. eventually it will trickle down to you and it will be your time. And because of that jealousy and that envy, we literally voted out one of the most patriotic leaders that we've had in our time. Now we're in a position where none of us are eating.
And that's exactly what this guy did. I mean, just think about it. Yes, he shook up these Europeans. Extremely African leader with all of his wives. There was like a disdain. Look at this black man who has so many wives. And when you look at it, it's like this guy is illiterate. So that's our African way. And he was unapologetic.
Never wavered, not for a second. Always stood by our culture and our ways, regardless.
100%. Then furthermore, he doesn't have the formal education that the white person says you need to have in order for you to lead a country. But what does he go do? He goes and leads the country. He doesn't stop there. He's like, bruh, you remember those evergreen contracts you guys were just chatting about in CODESA? Fuck you and fuck them too. Cancelled all those CODESA contracts. Same thing. Then he hired individuals in strategic positions. Of course, they won't definitely say that that's what happened. But Hlaudi, why did Hlaudi get removed? Hlaudi didn't get removed because of all the propaganda that was shared on ENCA and all these other media platforms. No, it's because he cancelled the evergreen contracts as well. There was a host of evergreen contracts. But they were like, what? I cannot clean the aircons anymore. You're not going to buy my aircons anymore. So these are all the stuff that a lot of us, including myself, I didn't know. I bought into the whole propaganda. No, man, we've been looking at South Africa in a very narrow. It's like you saying you want to vote for the DA. Aye, guys, you're taking chances. I mean, you see what's happening now in Jozi. The speaker's gone. They got rid of the mayor, Mpho. Why? Because the DA are exactly what they are. What I don't like about the DA is that when they think of creating jobs for the black person and service delivery, it's always jobs that are for the black person back in the day. And let's be honest, that can be done. Privatize everything, let the white person own and let the black people have jobs. What jobs are these?
So how do people get to that place where they're sort of politically educated or enlightened enough to see when they're being manipulated or being lied to, where they sort of understand the media enough to see when there's an agenda going on? Because I always admire people who can do that. They can tell you that this news channel is owned by so-and-so, and because of that, it's got a bias towards this. How did you get to a place where now you're sort of seeing the underlying truth and you're sort of seeing where you're being manipulated and it's not the actual truth, but the truth's being bended? Was it a matter of reading? Was it a matter of studying? Do you speak to the right people? What happens?
100%. If Stuart reads something, what's it? I Write What I Like by Steve Biko. I haven't read the book yet, but I speak to a lot of individuals who have. What I get from them is that this book speaks to how the black person perceives themselves and how Europe perceives, all the rest of the world perceives Africa. I actually wanted to touch base on that. What do we as Africans want the whole world to think of us? I think we've never really had that kind of conversation, obviously because we didn't really have the luxury to have that kind of conversation, right? The conversations we were having was plantation, Bantu, or whatever that particular generation of black people were going through at the time. But now that we're in this generation, we're able to dissect even deeper. We need to start thinking about what do we want the rest of the world to see us as? Do we always want the rest of the world to see us as a country that needs aid from the rest of the world? I don't know. Do we always want the rest of the world to see Africa as a country that is rich in minerals? No. Why can't we be a country that is rich in minerals and then produce something from those minerals, manufacture whatever you need to manufacture from those minerals? Let them see us as the end product. Why do we always have to be the beginning? I mean, we're so diverse. Before Yanni and the boys got here in 16 whatever, we already had internal battles because of how diverse we were.
Yeah, at the time Ushaka was trying to take over the country, or I think he was even expanding beyond our borders, trying to get into other parts of Africa.
100%. That's how we have Nguni people going north because they were running away from Ushaka. I wonder what Shaka would have done. What would have been the end result of what Shaka was doing?
Siyagesana